Ladies and gentlemen, can you hear me?
No.
Yes.
There.
Yes. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Scott Nance. Welcome to the Chinese Theater. What did you think of Moonage Daydream? Well, let's dance, young Americans, and welcome writer, director, and editor Brett Morgan.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, all of you, for being here.
What are you thinking right now? What's going through your mind?
Oh my God, I just had an out-of-body experience.
Well, you and everybody in this theater, we all had an out-of-body experience. And I told you off to the side, I was sitting there 20 minutes into the film, and I'm thinking, this is the greatest movie I've ever seen. This is awesome. So, listen, Brett, how long ago did this start for you, and how did this even come about?
Well, I met with David in 2007 to discuss collaborating on a project, and at the time his health wasn't so great, and the project I had in mind wasn't this, it was going to be more of a acting sort of performance type piece. And then I did a movie called Montage of Hack. Was anyone here at the Cinerama ago? Yeah? So I just have to quickly say, if you know I did a lot of fun giveaways for that one, so here's the Wonka ticket. The first person to see the movie 5 times this weekend gets to come to my office and watch anything they want to watch. I just tell you, you gotta take a picture of your ticket. I'm serious, if you guys want to see it. That's for real.
Man, it's work, boss.
And so I did Montage of Hack, and it was, if you were there at the Cinerama Dome, it was like this intense sound experience, and I was like, I loved that. And I came up with this idea to do something called the IMAX music experience, which was just going to be like an immersive 40-minute sort of planetarium show, no plot, no biography, just kind of, I wanted to hear music like I just did when I sat down in like the 3rd row, just get sort of overwhelmed by it. And we were going down the road with the Beatles and some other bands, and David Pence.
Wait, hang on. Hold that thought. Okay, we're back.
And then I called his executive who had been in my meeting, and I told him I was wanting to do this kind of immersive music project. And he said, most people don't know this, but David saved everything, which is remarkable when you think about how much he traveled. And eventually when he got the materials, his diaries, his journals, everything. And particularly at the time he was in LA, he was incredibly prolific with his writing. There were some mind-blowing diary entries about like driving out to the desert and seeing UFOs and just crazy. Really, I don't know. Anyway, and they basically said they would, Bill said, we will give you access to everything. You can have final cut. And that was kind of amazing. Like they just let me do my own thing. In fact, to the point that they, 1 or 2 times I asked him for advice because he knew David so well, and he just refused to give me any input.
Okay, so that's pretty extraordinary. You're giving a final cut on a film about David Bowie, but when you had access to everything, define the word everything. How much footage did you go through, and how long did it take you to get through that footage?
So it took 2 years, 6 days a week, 12 to 14 hours a day of pure bliss. I was like, I wish it never ended. It was incredible, like, because I didn't have to really, I don't want to say I wasn't working, but I was just going to watch David Bowie every day in my office. And that was a remarkable experience. And it was so blissful, and then I thought that usually when I'm done screening through all the material, I can sort of pour this, the script comes pouring out of me. And so I had a week in my schedule before I would start editing. And then I got stuck. I had the worst writer's block in the world. I couldn't figure out how to write an experience. I didn't want it to be biographical. And I wanted to feel like the narrative kind of sort of snuck up on you, if you will. And I just didn't know how to do it. I was really in over my head. And for 8 months, I would just go to my office and write essays and like write chaos theory and just different things so I like could come home like not feeling like a total loser. And then after 8 months, I was thinking a lot about mythology and trying to put David into kind of a hero's journey. And I realized that if I sort of made it so that he was creating his own storms and challenges for himself, it would kind of have that sort of give me this arc. The through line was very transparent from the moment I started. David talks about chaos, fragmentation, and transience repeatedly throughout his career. So that was very sort of tangible for me to sort of access.
So when you were going through all this footage over a 2-year period, which by the way is the greatest job in the world, you're going through all this footage, Bray. So 2 questions, like what really surprised you during your discovery, during this 2-year process? What really threw you and surprised you? What was the biggest discovery? The other thing is, what was like the holy grail of never before seen footage that just totally rocked your world?
Well, what surprised me is probably up on the screen, which is his sort of philosophy towards life about making the most of each day. That was not something that I was expecting. And as I've said a little too much recently, I had a heart attack right before I started going through all the material. Flatlined and was in a coma for a while. And so that message about how to appreciate life and how to balance your life was really resonated with me. And I don't think this film would be what it is if I hadn't had that experience. So for me, it was a bit about learning how to live again and how to. Can I just do something really quick? There's a few people here I have to acknowledge.
Please do.
I would not have been here today if not for my mom and dad, who I didn't know were going to be here, and I saw them walking in, so they gave birth to me. And my father loves movies, and he's interested in movies. They're in the back row. And there's 2 other people, my wife and my son, who I love desperately, are in here. And there's 2 other people from my past I just have to acknowledge. The man, I think he's in the room tonight, who introduced me to David Bowie, Andy Goldman, if you're in the room. I don't know if you're here. Are you here, Andy? And Andy, like in 6th, 7th grade, he was the coolest cat. He had Scary Monsters, and that just turned me on. And then he did the titles for the film. And my Terry, the man who introduced me to culture, and almost all the references you saw in the film was my 8th grade English teacher, Jim Hosney. Jim, are you here tonight? I think you're in the room somewhere if you are. Oh, Jim's right there. Jim, I love you. Thank you for giving me my vision. I thank you. I wouldn't be here without you. You are, thank you. I hope everyone has a Jim in their life, and I think and Jim served a similar role that Bowie did in terms of introducing me to culture, and so anyway, I just thank you for indulging.
Of course, but that holy grail moment you're going.
Oh, the Holy Grail, the Holy Grail. Well, the Bowie fans know what the Holy Grail is, right? Earl's Court, 78. The Heroes.
Yes.
That was footage shot by David Hemmings in 1978. They had 5 cameras, 35mm cameras for 2 nights, 24-track audio recorded by Tony Visconti. David's vocals so clean on it that you don't even hear any other instrumentation when you isolate his vocal. And that had been sitting in cans for 40 years. And the first day I walked into the archive, there was a wall of 35mm cans, and so I immediately made a beeline for it, and it said stage. And I was like, whoa, what's this? David's archivist was like, oh, this concert that David never really, he sort of abandoned. And my eyes just lit up, and that became a sort of, that was pretty special.
So when it came to doing this on an IMAX screen, how did you go about taking the footage that you were going to put into the feature and digitizing it and making it look good on an IMAX?
I gotta say, this was the biggest screen I think I've seen it on. And Tyler Roth at Company 3, we did 650 hours of supervised color, and a lot of it was grain reduction for an occasion like this, trying to really just. And the funny thing is, if you're up in the front, probably there were probably some shots that were like a little hard to look at. Those were the ones we spent the most time on. And I would say to him, I go, "Duh, this is miserable," because we were struck just fighting because we didn't want to have anything that would take the audience out of the film. So it was really, but some of that stuff we just had to use because of there was one shot in particular where the camera tracks around him and there's a narrator who says, "David Bowie is 33 years old."
Yeah.
So that's from 2020, and there was not a good copy of that, and I didn't really realize how bad the original was until I got the color correct. And then I was like, we're done. There was no way to fix it. And then I came up with this idea to make it look like the whole thing was like through this, I changed the focal plane on it. So we took everything, made it out of focus, except for like a piece of David's, so it would look like it was shot with a long lens. And then we actually put in a fake, like, rack focus on it, which then masked a ton of nasty noise and blurring. It was just sort of a battling it out. And then the sound was Paul Massey, who,
Won the Oscar for Bohemian Rhapsody.
it's Paul and Dave Gianmarco, and we had the entire sound team from Bohemian Rhapsody come on board, which was like they're just masters and wizards of sound, and that was.
So all the footage that you're going through, then all the other film footage that you use, like how did you sort of like feel like you finally captured the essence of Bowie? And how did you take all of that footage over all those days for 2 years and get it down to a 2-hour, 15-minute documentary?
It wasn't a whittling down. There was no long version of the film. It was more like trying to figure out shot to shot how to get to the end. The editing process was like ebbs and flows. The scene with Amon, I had cut the Amon scene. I had cut the scene that leads into it, and I couldn't figure out the transition. Like I needed a line to get me from one to the other. 26 days I would go to my office, banging my head against the wall, and on the 27th day, because I was by myself, so I didn't have anyone to just say what happened on the 27th day. Was I put it, then I met him on. I was like, that's it. That was all I needed to do. It was like that, and there was some crazy weird stuff, like the scene where David starts dancing out of the shadows, where he comes from a crouch. Really interesting story on that. That was from Heart's Filthy Lessons, Sam Baer music video. And there were no video dailies of it, so we did a 4K scan of all the dailies. And when the dailies would arrive in the office, I would tell my assistant to like ring the bell, like I have to get my eyes on them immediately. And so I was all excited to see what was there because I had no idea what was going to be in there. And just to entertain myself, because it's MOS footage, I was like, oh, I'll just throw on some music. So if I'm going to look at this, there's something there. And I put on the Philip Glass track. And then I was like, I just cut a selects reel about David's idea of art and the mystery of art. And so I said, all right, I'll just throw that on so I can like study that while I'm looking at this. And swear to God, I pressed play and he started coming out of that crouch, perfectly synchronized the Glass music, exactly as it exists in the film today. And and I think what I learned from David are there are no mistakes, there's just happy accidents. And to embrace that, and to try to embrace it wherever I could, and to try to get to that place. So at one point, about 6 months in the edit, we were in the pandemic, I was by myself, I needed to change my environment, and so I went, we have a place we stay on the Big Island, and I took my laptop there. I said, I'm not gonna leave until I crack it. And the ending of the film, which was Sun Machine and Station sort of mixed up together, happened. I woke up one night at 2 in the morning. My oven was right next to me. I had been thinking about it, I think the day before, but I cut the thing. I went back to sleep at 5, and then I woke up the next day, looked at it, and that was the scene. And again, it's not an accident because I've been studying David's techniques and just making myself open and receptive to this sort of like trying to. And the thing about the sleep was David had this great line when he was doing a promo for RCA where he talked about describing his music as the moment right before you go to sleep, but you're still conscious and trying to tap into that. So I thought it was kind of like I don't know what it was, some sort of transmission that came to me while I was sleeping. And then that was the ending of the film. And then you look at it and you go, it's fine. I mean, that's it. It was meant to be what it's meant to be.
Did you ever think at any point during the filmmaking process, so especially when you were going through the footage and you finally cracked it, did you ever think to yourself, I wonder what Bowie would think of this movie?
No. No. I don't think because it's too intangible. You know, it's too intangible. I mean, I took my instructions from his words and from what I received through his interviews and writings and whatnot. So I was obviously trying to channel him and trying to create a film that was enigmatic, that invited you to project your own story onto the screen. I think for me, and everyone has their own Bowie, I think for me, the more I listen to David, I don't get closer to David Jones, I sort of learn more about myself. And I wanted to create a canvas that would invite the audience to do that.
Last question, for people who are diehard Bowie fans,
They're great here.
this guy, like so many of us, but also for people, I saw some really young moviegoers here tonight who are, I would imagine, seeing Bowie really for the first time. Like, what do you hope people take away? What kind of essence of Bowie do you hope people capture after watching Moonage Daydream?
I think David Bowie is the greatest artist of my lifetime.
Woo! Yes.
And I think his courage, the audacity, when I've been thinking about this a lot. I can't think of too many other artists who had achieved that level of stardom and success and were willing to just throw it all away to scratch a creative itch. And when he went from LA to Berlin, he really did go and create this new sort of sound. And I heard the stems, and it blew my mind because each stem sounded totally. You could tell that they were cutting and pasting and making this up in the control room, and it was just ridiculous how incredible. It was like, how did that work? I don't understand, but he put himself in these situations to succeed. But that courage, I basically decided this week I'll never make a music documentary again, and I'll never probably won't do another archival film. My wife got really mad when I said that in Toronto the other day. And I was like, if I did say it out loud in public, I would never be able to follow through on it, but I would feel that I would be betraying my relationship that I've had with my own quote-unquote Bowie if I were to try to repeat myself again. So what started out as a 15-film series, the IMAX Music Experience, this is the only one. And, I just want to say that the movie IMAX, oh my God, Megan, God bless you for allowing this to happen. I can't even believe it. This is like a genie. And in 6 days, it's going to be put back in a bottle, and this film will never be available again in IMAX. So for the next 6 days, you will be able to experience the film if you know anyone who might be interested to see it in this grandeur. And if I could just say one last thing, because I was moving all around the room because the back was a little too quiet for me. And I got up here and I was there, you two there, and it sounded so good. But in the back, the picture's so good.
Yeah.
So it's wherever right there in the middle, I'm gonna sit there tomorrow morning.
So listen, ladies and gentlemen, everyone in this theater. So here's what you need to do. Because IMAX is the premium way to see this film, make sure you go on Twitter, go on Facebook, go on Instagram. You in the back, you're still using MySpace. But spread the word about Daydream. See it in IMAX theaters, and then next Friday it'll still be in theaters. But absolutely spread the word to see it in IMAX theaters. Thank you everyone for being at the Chinese Theater. Thank you, Frank Morgan. Just say the word. I'm there for you, man.
Okay.
I have a poster for your whole club. Alex, can you come down here? These are the UK quads. So those aren't all for you. You got to split.
Oh yeah, of
them.
course I will.
My assistant.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh wait, I turn him around.
Thank you, Brad. Oh, my
Do you mind if I-
goodness.
Oh yeah.
I will be your slave. Right?
So much. Yes. Yes.
Brett, thank you. Thank you.
Deborah, can you hold this cup? Can you find Alex too?
I remember this try.
Thank you.
Yeah, my baby.
Sorry.
Earrings are like.
Thank you so much.
Love you.
Thank you.